So here's a staging spring trick to get you around having to have a vacuum gauge. The mechanics tell you, oh, you got to have a vacuum gauge to check the staging, you know, on your springs. And the way I always remembered it is when you buy them brand new, it comes with a 5-inch vacuum spring in there. Not 5 inches long, it's HG measured in vacuum. And the way I always remembered that since 90s, early 90s, literally, B.Y.O.P, back in the day, bring your own bottle if you're going to a party. Well, I just changed this to B.Y.O.P. And that's blue, yellow, orange, pink. Blue's your 3-inch vacuum spring, yellow's your 4, orange is your 5-inch vacuum spring, and I think the pink is 7 if I remember right. And then there's actually one more after that. I think it ends up being a 9 on the vacuum scale. But what you can do, I mean, see, if you don't have a vacuum gauge, this is what I've always done. Just go ahead and loosen this screw up here. This is where your power piston and your staging spring is in there. Take this window, just slide it about halfway open, and then just snug that screw back up. Don't tighten it down, you'll bend it. Don't crank it or grief it, just lightly snug it. So now that can't come out of there. So if you're already on your vehicle and you're checking it, as soon as you start your vehicle, this is going to suck down in the hole. The vacuum's going to hold it in there. It can't come out as long as the vehicle's running. So what you can do then is right in front of your carburetor so you can see it, just give it light acceleration on your accelerator arm here that's hooked to your gas pedal. And you're supposed to be able to give it light acceleration without it staging to power mode. When it's down all the way, that's cruise mode. When you give it X amount of gas and the spring overcomes the vacuum drop, then that goes up and that takes you into power mode. Then as your vacuum increases, this sucks back down and it goes back down into cruise mode. But what you can do is go ahead and open that window halfway, fire your vehicle up first if you want. That'll be down in the hole. So as soon as you stroke your accelerator here, you're idling at say 900 RPM, you should be able to give it 1,000, 1,500 RPM and it should stay down in the lean mode. And as soon as you cross that threshold of your 5-inch spring, if that's the one you have in there, this will just snap up and hit the lid. You'll see it. You'll see it suck back down. So you can sit there and pop it. Boom, boom. You can see how much gas. You should be able to give it a little bit of gas on your accelerator. You know, you should be able to, your idle, whoopum, whoopum, whoopum. You should be able to give it X amount and it should stay down in there. So, and something I've always done for mileage, I usually put the yellow spring in, the 4-inch spring. That way it has to drop, the vacuum has to drop a little bit more before it stages you into power mode. But that's a good way around that not having a vacuum gauge. Just leave that window half open, your spring's underneath this here, and just go ahead and fire it up. It'll suck those down, and when you break that threshold, it'll go ahead and crack on up. So you can go ahead and, if you want, loosen that back up. Take that all the way on off like that. And now the spring will push it on up out of there. If I remember right, you put the yellow spring in there, it barely clears the top of the sidewall here. But this one actually, this one here actually has a homemade wire on it. Pulled a needle on there. I was working on it one night and lost that damn wire right there that holds the needle through there. So I took some piece of electrical cord, braided electrical cord, and took a strand of the wire and made one of them damn wires so that I could drive it without having to wait to get parts. But go ahead and drop your, there's the spring. I mean, if you want to pull that spring out, brand new, it'll be a 5-inch orange spring. Just pull that out, drop in the yellow spring, which is 4 inches, stuff that back down in the hole. Swing your little cover back over it. That'll hold it down in there. And now you can do the same thing again if you want. Fire the motor up. It'll suck that down right away and give it light acceleration, and it should stay down there in the lean cruise mode. And you can see what's going on rather than having to read a vacuum gauge and determine from there. So good way around not having a vacuum gauge. I think this is a better way to do it anyhow, because you can see with your eye how much gas you're giving it before it pops into cruise mode. Just make sure the window's halfway shut. And that way when it stages the cruise or power mode, it doesn't pop up out of the hole. But good way around checking that without a vacuum gauge. So Everybody be safe.